First Contact Confusion. Supreme Commander Zixtal of the Galactic Concordat considered himself an expert in synopsychology. After 2 centuries of studying emerging species, he prided himself on predicting behavioral patterns within cycles of first contact. But humans, they defied every classification. "They're doing it again," he chittered to his assistant, Valnan, as they observed the latest diplomatic summit through the pristine observation deck of the Concordat's flagship. Every single human representative has positioned themselves exactly 7 steps from the nearest exit. 7 steps. It's not random. The massive chamber, designed to accommodate 30 different species comfortably, sparkled with the bioluminescence of the myriad delegation and the crystalline architecture preferred by the ancient Concordat. Around the central table, representatives from across the galaxy conducted the delicate dance of interstellar politics. The humans, despite being the newest members of the galactic community, had declined their designated seats near the center. Perhaps they simply prefer the periphery. Valnan suggested, her auxiliary eyes scanning the data streams flowing through her neural interface. Many species exhibit territorial preferences during their adaptation period. Zixtal's dorsal spines rippled with disagreement. "No, it's more than that. Watch their eyes." The human delegation, 5 individuals of varying pigmentations and builds, maintained what appeared to be casual conversations. But Zixtal had spent enough time studying them to notice the pattern. Every 40 seconds, like clockwork, each human would perform a subtle scan of their surroundings, noting exits, other delegates, and security positions. They're combat-trained, he realized, mandibles clicking with excitement. All of them. But why send warriors to a diplomatic summit? And why hide it beneath these carefully crafted veneers of political pleasantry? Before Valnan could respond, the chamber's atmospheric processors hiccuped. A minor malfunction that would normally merit nothing more than a momentary distraction. But the human's reaction told a different story. In the split second between the processor's stutter and its correction, every human in the room had shifted. Subtle movements, barely noticeable, but their positions had optimized. Backs to walls. Clear lines of sight. Hands closer to their formal attire, where Zixtal was certain they concealed whatever weapons they'd somehow smuggled through the Concordat's legendary security. "Fascinating," he breathed. "They react to potential threats faster than Kavarian quicksilver predators, yet their cardiovascular readings show no spike in stress hormones. This isn't trained behavior, it's instinctive." "Supreme Commander," Valnan interrupted, her tone carrying the harmonic of urgent communication. "I've completed the historical analysis you requested. You need to see this." The data streamed directly into Zixtal's neural interface, Earth's history. Not the sanitized version presented during first contact, but the raw data gathered by deep-cover observation posts. Centuries of warfare, millennia of survival against environmental extremes, a species that had spent its entire existence preparing for the next threat, the next challenge, the next fight for survival. They're not paranoid, Zixtal realized, his spines fully extended in astonishment. They're prepared. Their entire evolutionary history is one long preparation for worst-case scenarios. But why maintain such vigilance after achieving interstellar civilization? The answer came 3 days later, when a Kavarian strike force attempted to assassinate the Concordat's High Council. The attack failed, largely because 5 human diplomats, who just happened to be in the right places at the right time, responded with a level of tactical precision that would have impressed a Kavarian war master. As Zixtal reviewed the security footage of humans neutralizing elite assassins with nothing more than dining utensils and improvised weapons, he finally understood. Humans hadn't evolved beyond their survival instincts. They'd refined them into an art form. "Send a message to the Council," he instructed Valnan. "Recommend immediate revision of humanity's threat classification, and suggest we reconsider their application to join the Concordat's defense force. Add a personal note. Any species that maintains special forces readiness in their diplomatic corps deserves our closest attention. Valman's auxiliary eyes pulsed with curiosity. Classification upgrade recommendation. Zixtal watched as the human delegates, having neutralized a lethal threat, calmly returned to their diplomatic duties as if nothing unusual had occurred. Mark them as Category Alpha and add a special notation. Never assume they're unprepared. They always are. The incident at Proxima Station. Proxima Station hung in the void like a gleaming metal lotus, its petals stretched wide to catch the red dwarf's dim light. Supreme Commander Zixtal found himself admiring the human engineering as his shuttle approached. For such a young species, they had a remarkable gift for building in space. Final approach to Docking Bay 7, the pilot announced, her crystalline form refracting the cockpit's lights. Human security protocols are extensive. Zixtal watched as their shuttle underwent 3 separate scanning procedures before receiving clearance. In the 2 months since the assassination attempt at the Concordat summit, humanity's security measures had been adopted across multiple species installations. Their paranoia, it seemed, was contagious. The reason for his visit waited in the station's primary conference room. Dr. Sarah Chen, Earth's leading xenoanthropologist, and the first human to openly discuss their species' defensive nature with the galactic community. Supreme Commander, she greeted him, rising from her seat near. He noted with amusement. The room's secondary exit. Welcome to Proxima Station. Dr. Chen, he responded, allowing his spines to relax in a gesture of openness. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. Your recent publication on human threat assessment mechanisms has caused quite a stir in the Concordat. I imagine it has. She smiled, but her eyes never stopped their subtle scanning of the room. Though I'm curious why it warranted a personal visit from the Supreme Commander of Galactic Security. Before he could respond, the station's lights flickered. To most species, it would have appeared a mere technical glitch. But Zixtal had spent too much time studying humans. He saw how Dr. Chen's posture shifted microscopically, how her hand drifted closer to what he suspected was a concealed weapon. That's exactly why, he said, gesturing to her posture. You're doing it now. Combat readiness without conscious thought. Your entire species maintains a level of situational awareness that most military organizations struggle to instill in their elite forces. It's not training, she replied, relaxing slightly as the light stabilized. It's survival instinct, honed over thousands of generations. Earth isn't like most homeworlds, Commander. We evolved as both predator and prey. The lights flickered again, longer this time. Chen frowned, pulling out a small device that Zixtal recognized as a human communications unit. Security, status report. Static answered her. Zixtal felt his own combat instincts surge as Chen moved smoothly to the door panel, checking its interface. Station's gone to emergency power. That's not supposed to happen. Not with our redundant systems. Pirates. Zixtal suggested, his spines extending defensively. Worse, Chen replied, her voice dropping to a whisper as heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. This is coordinated, professional. Multiple points of failure simultaneously. Someone's taken control of station systems. The footsteps grew closer. Chen moved with practiced efficiency, positioning herself beside the door while gesturing for Zixtal to take cover behind a reinforced conference table. He noticed she produced a compact weapon seemingly from nowhere. Remember the Kavarian assassins? She asked conversationally, as if discussing weather patterns. They were just the tip of the spear. Someone's been probing humanity's defenses, testing our responses. This is the real attack. The door exploded inward in a shower of metallic fragments. Through the smoke, Zixtal glimpsed armored figures moving with military precision. But Chen was already moving, her earlier positioning paying deadly dividends. 3 shots, 3 armored figures down before they could properly enter the room. Commander, she called out, rolling to new cover as return fire scorched the wall behind her previous position. I hope you're combat trained. This is going to be a long day. I'm certified in 17 forms of combat, he replied, extending his battle spines to their full threatening display. Chen's laugh was somehow both warm and predatory. Good, because there's something else you should know about humans. We don't just prepare for the worst. We prepare others too. See that panel behind you? Third sequence on the keypad releases the emergency armory. As Zixtal input the sequence, revealing a cache of weapons that would make a military vessel proud, he finally understood. Humans hadn't just evolved to survive. They'd evolved to ensure everyone around them survived too. Their apparent paranoia wasn't fear, it was preparation to protect. The station's emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow as more footsteps approached their position. Chen checked her weapon with practiced ease, her movements economical and precise. Ready to learn why humans always choose defensive positions, Commander. Zixtal selected a weapon from the cache, noting with approval that it was perfectly maintained. I believe I'm about to find out. Rule 1, Chen said, as shadows appeared in the doorway. Always have a backup plan, or in our case about 7 of them. The attackers never stood a chance. By the time station security regained control 3 hours later, Zixtal had witnessed firsthand why humanity's seemingly paranoid defensive habits had kept them alive through countless challenges. More importantly, he understood why they worked so hard to protect others. As he helped Chen secure the last of the surviving attackers, he made a mental note to update the Concordette's files again. Humans weren't just prepared for the worst, they made sure everyone else was too. Perhaps that, more than anything, was why they'd survived long enough to reach the stars. The truth behind human nature. The medical bay of the Concordate flagship hummed with advanced healing technologies as Supreme Commander Zixtal's wounds from the Proxima Station attack retreated. Dr. Chen sat nearby, looking remarkably composed for someone who'd just fought off an elite strike force. She'd insisted on continuing their discussion despite the medical staff's protests. You want to know why we're like this? She asked, pulling up a holographic display of Earth. Look at our world. Really look at it. The hologram zoomed in, showing Earth's varied terrains. Vast oceans, towering mountains, dense forests, sprawling deserts. Most species evolve in relatively uniform environments, she continued. Desert species adapt to heat and sand. Ocean dwellers master the depths. But humans, we had to adapt to everything. Zixtal watched as the hologram cycled through Earth's extreme weather patterns. Hurricanes, blizzards, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions. Your world seems unusually hostile, he observed, wincing as a medical drone repaired his damaged spine plates. Hostile is our normal, Chen replied with a grim smile. But it's not just the environment. Look at Earth's predator population density compared to other inhabited worlds. The statistical overlay made Zixtal's auxiliary hearts skip a beat. This can't be accurate. The number of apex predators per territorial unit is off the charts. Chen finished. Yeah, we evolved on a death world, Commander. But here's the really interesting part. We weren't the strongest, fastest, or most naturally armed species. We survived because we never stopped watching for threats, because we learned to plan for disaster before it struck. She pulled up another hologram, this one showing human historical events. Every major civilization in our history faced catastrophic challenges, natural disasters, invasions, plagues. The ones that survived weren't necessarily the strongest. They were the ones who planned ahead, who maintained awareness, who had backup strategies. But you've mastered your world, Zixtal argued. You've achieved spaceflight, joined the galactic community. Why maintain such heightened vigilance? Chen's expression darkened. Because we learned the hard way that there's always a bigger threat. She accessed a secure file, displaying footage that made Zixtal's spines bristle with horror. This was Lagos, Earth year 2127. First contact with the Drachnid raiders. The footage showed a peaceful coastal city suddenly under attack from advanced alien forces. But instead of panic and chaos, the human response was surprisingly organized. Civilian defense protocols activated instantly. Hidden bunkers opened. Armed response teams emerged from seemingly nowhere. Everyone thought we were paranoid, Chen explained, maintaining military-grade bunkers in every major city, running regular evacuation drills, keeping weapon caches in public buildings. Until the day we needed them. The footage continued, showing how prepared civilians helped coordinate the defense until military forces arrived. The raiders, expecting easy prey, found themselves facing a population trained from childhood to respond to catastrophe. We drove them off, Chen said quietly. But it confirmed what we'd always suspected. The galaxy is just as dangerous as our homeworld. So we adapted, like we always do. Every human diplomatic mission includes combat-trained personnel. Every civilian habitat has defensive capabilities. Every peaceful conference room has a hidden armory. Zixtal's analytical mind raced with implications. The Proxima Station attack. You knew something like that might happen. We didn't know what or when, Chen corrected. We just knew that something would eventually go wrong. It always does. So we made sure we were ready, just like we're ready for the next threat, and the one after that. A medical drone announced that Zixtal's treatment was complete. As he tested his repaired spines, he noticed something odd about the medical bay's layout. The equipment positioning. It's defensive. Chen smiled. Noticed that, did you? Humans designed this section of your flagship. We couldn't help ourselves. Everything we build with survival in mind. The best emergency exits are the ones you never have to use, but they'd better be there when you need them. And the Concordat thought you were just being helpful with your architectural suggestions, Zixtal mused. You've been quietly upgrading our defensive capabilities since day one. Old habits, Chen shrugged. We protect our own. And now, the Concordat is our own. As if to punctuate her point, an alert sounded, a minor one, indicating an unauthorized access attempt in a lower deck. Before the security team could respond, the system reported the threat neutralized. On the security feed, Zixtal glimpsed a human maintenance worker casually returning to their duties, an unconscious intruder at their feet. See, Chen gestured at the screen. Everyone thinks humans are just being paranoid, but we're not afraid of what might happen. Her smile turned predatory. We're ready for it. Zixtal realized that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their preparedness. It was how they turned paranoia into protection, fear into readiness, survival into an art form. They didn't just survive. They made sure everyone around them survived too. Doctor, he said carefully, I believe it's time we discussed upgrading humanity's role in Concordat security operations. About time, Chen replied, pulling out a data chip. We have some suggestions. About 7 backup plans worth, actually. The Siege of New Geneva. Supreme Commander Zixtal stood in New Geneva's Central Command Center, watching as the massive holographic display tracked thousands of incoming hostile signatures. The human colony world, home to over 3 million settlers, and the Concordat's newest defense academy, was about to face the largest coordinated attack in recent galactic history. The Drachnid fleet will breach our outer sensor network in 17 minutes, reported Admiral Sarah Chen, recently promoted after the Proxima Station incident, followed by what appears to be the entire Kavarian Armada, and something else. Something big. Still glad you recommended expanding humanity's role in Concordat defense. Zixtal asked, his attempt at humor barely masking his concern. Chen's smile was fierce. Actually, yes, because now we get to show you what humans can really do when we have time to prepare properly. The command center hummed with activity, but Zixtal noticed something odd. The human operators seemed almost calm, methodically working through predetermined protocols. There was none of the panic he'd expected from a civilian population facing imminent invasion. Initiate Defense Plan Omega, Chen commanded. Authorization Chen 7 Delta 9. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Across the planet's surface, what had appeared to be ordinary buildings began to transform. Agricultural silos split open to reveal missile batteries. Public parks shifted to expose plasma cannon emplacements. Every major population center sprouted defensive shields that had been disguised as atmospheric processors. You built the entire colony as one massive defensive installation. Zixtol realized, his spines extending in amazement. Of course we did, Chen replied, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Every human colony is designed this way. We just usually don't advertise it. But today, she activated another command sequence. Today we show them why you don't corner humans. The first wave of Drachnid ships hit the outer defense grid. They clearly expected to punch through easily. Instead, they encountered layered defenses that seemed to anticipate their every move. Automated defense platforms materialized from hidden fold space pockets. Quantum mines detonated in precisely calculated patterns. Pattern recognition software, Chen explained as they watched the Drachnid formation crumble. We've been studying their tactics since first contact. Every possible attack scenario, mapped and countered. But the Kavarians had learned from their allies' mistake. Their ships approached in an entirely new formation, one designed to avoid the predicted defense patterns. Chen's smile grew wider. And that's why we have Plan B. Through Plan Z, she opened a secure channel. All civilians, initiate Thunderbolt Protocol. Across New Geneva, ordinary citizens moved with practiced precision. Children were quickly evacuated to underground bunkers that doubled as schools. Office workers calmly retrieved weapons from hidden caches. Factory workers transitioned seamlessly from manufacturing consumer goods to producing military supplies. Every citizen trained in basic combat and emergency protocols, Chen said proudly. Every building designed with multiple defensive configurations. Every civilian vehicle capable of being converted for military use. This isn't just a colony. It's humanity's statement to the galaxy. We will not be caught unprepared. Not ever again. The massive unknown signature finally emerged from hyperspace, a planet-killer class vessel, larger than anything the Concordat had encountered before. Its main weapon began charging, ready to reduce New Geneva to atomic dust. And that, Chen said calmly, is exactly what we expected them to bring. She entered a final command sequence. Initiate Operation Mountain's Heart. The planet's crust itself seemed to ripple. Hidden generators, buried kilometers deep, activated simultaneously. The planet killer fired its devastating weapon, only to watch in confusion as New Geneva's atmosphere itself hardened into an impenetrable shield. Impossible, Zixtol whispered. The energy requirements alone. We've been building this since we laid the first foundation, Chen explained. Every power plant, every fusion reactor, every solar collector, all designed to channel energy into the planetary defense grid. We didn't just build a colony. We built a fortress. The counterattack, when it came, was devastating in its precision. Hidden defense platforms emerged from gas giant rings. Stealth ships appeared from within hollow asteroids. The trapped attackers found themselves caught in a killbox 3 years in the making. You see, Commander, Chen said as they watched the enemy fleet's destruction. Humans don't just prepare for the worst. We prepare to win. Every civilian trained as a soldier, every building designed as a bunker, every peaceful tool ready to serve in war. Not because we want to fight, but because you'll be ready when the fight comes to you. Zixtol finished, finally understanding. Your species doesn't just survive. You ensure victory before the battle even begins. As the last enemy ships fled or surrendered, Chen turned to face him fully. We have a saying on Earth, hope for the best, plan for the worst. The galaxy thought we were paranoid. Now they know. We're prepared. The cleanup would take weeks, but New Geneva stood unscathed. Its citizens emerged from their shelters and calmly returned to their daily lives, their defensive training no longer a secret to be hidden, but a testament to human foresight. Zixtal watched as children helped collect spent defense drones, their parents already repairing and disguising the weapon emplacements that had saved their homes. These weren't just colonists. They were guardians, every one of them ready to defend not just themselves but the entire galaxy. "I believe," he said carefully, "that the Concordat needs to seriously reconsider its defensive doctrine. Perhaps it's time we learn to think more like humans." Chen was already pulling up plans on her datapad. "Funny you should mention that. We have some suggestions. About 17 contingency plans worth, actually." Respect among stars. 1 year after the Battle of New Geneva, Supreme Commander Zixtal stood before the assembled Galactic Concordat Council. The Grand Chamber, once designed purely for ceremonial purposes, now bore subtle signs of human influence: reinforced walls disguised as decorative panels, hidden security stations, multiple evacuation routes. The changes reflected a deeper transformation in galactic society. "The integration of human defensive protocols across Concordat space is now complete," he announced, his spines relaxed but alert. Another habit he'd learned from his human allies. Every major installation has been upgraded. Every civilian center has implemented emergency response training. Every fleet has adopted adaptive tactical protocols. The council members, representing thousands of species across the galaxy, absorbed this information with new understanding. The Drachnid ambassador, once among the most vocal critics of human paranoia, now sat near a discreet emergency exit, a position that drew knowing smiles from the human delegation. "And the results?" asked the council leader, her crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns. Zixtal activated the central holographic display. "In the past solar cycle, attempted pirate raids have decreased by 87%. Civilian casualties from natural disasters are down 93%. Even traffic accidents have been reduced by 65%. Turns out humans' habit of planning for worst-case scenarios works for everyday safety too." Admiral Chen, now serving as Earth's primary representative to the Council, stood to address the assembly. Her formal diplomatic attire, like all human clothing these days, was openly acknowledged to incorporate subtle protective features. "What happened at New Geneva wasn't just a military victory," she began. "It was proof of a philosophy humanity has lived by since we first looked up at the stars and wondered what threats they might hold. We survived on Earth not because we were the strongest, but because we were the most prepared. We didn't just adapt to threats, we learned to anticipate them." The holographic display shifted to show images from across Concordat space. Children of various species participating in emergency drills, civilian defense training incorporating multiple species' natural abilities, integrated response teams combining different species' strengths. "But preparation isn't about fear," Chen continued. "It's about freedom. When you know you're ready for anything, you can focus on living, on creating, on exploring. Every human child learns this from their first emergency drill. We prepare not because we're afraid, but because being prepared lets us be brave." Zixtal stepped forward again. "The recent attempted invasion proved something we should have realized sooner. Humanity's so-called paranoia wasn't a weakness or a quirk. It was their greatest gift to the galaxy. They don't just survive. They ensure everyone around them survives too." The council chamber's lighting shifted subtly, a test of the new alert system. Every being present noted exits and defensive positions automatically, a habit that had once seemed uniquely human but was now becoming universal. "We propose," Zixtal continued, "the establishment of a new Concordat-wide initiative, the Human Preparedness Doctrine, or as they call it, the Better Safe Than Sorry Protocol." Chuckles rippled through the chamber at the typically human naming convention. But the laughter held respect, not mockery. The galaxy had learned that human idioms often held deep wisdom. "Under this doctrine," Chen explained, "every new colony, station, or settlement will be designed with integrated defense systems. Every citizen will receive basic emergency and defensive training. Every peaceful technology will have contingency protocols for crisis response. Not because we expect disaster, but because we'll be ready if it comes, the council leader finished, using the human phrase with practiced ease. The motion is carried. Let it be recorded that the galaxy has learned perhaps its most important lesson from our human allies, that true civilization isn't just about advancing technology or expanding borders. It's about ensuring everyone makes it home safe at the end of the day. As the council session concluded, Zixtal watched the various delegates filing out, each of them unconsciously following human-inspired security protocols, each of them safer for it. His gaze met Chen's, and they shared a knowing smile. "You know," he said, "when I first started studying human behavior, I thought you were all just paranoid. Now I understand. You weren't watching for threats. You were watching out for everyone else." Chen nodded, her hand resting casually near her concealed sidearm, a habit that had become so common across species that its absence now seemed odd. That's the real secret of human survival. We never wanted to just save ourselves. We wanted to save everyone. Outside the council chamber, the galaxy continued its business, now subtly but fundamentally changed. In every port, every station, every settlement, beings of all species went about their lives, safer and more secure thanks to the species that had evolved on a death world, and decided that the best way to survive was to help everyone else survive too. Humanity's gift to the galaxy wasn't their technology or their military prowess. It was the simple, powerful idea that had driven them from their first steps on Earth to their current place among the stars. That the best way to face an uncertain universe was to be ready for anything, and to make sure everyone else was ready too. The galaxy had finally learned why humans always sat at the back of the room, near the exits, watching the doors. They weren't looking for escape routes. They were watching out for everyone else.